Hello, welcome to Post Colonial Space. I'm Masood Raja, and today in my series on general topics of discussion, I'll be talking about the responsible use of social media. And by that, what I mean is that how can we, as participants on Facebook, Twitter, Threads, or in a WhatsApp app group, how can we make sure that we don't end up perpetuating certain claims or information that actually is meant to add discord or to mislead people. Now, there is no denying the fact that we live in a world where social media are immensely powerful. Part of the reason is because we produce the content, and they rely heavily on how many people interact, like, comment on that. So it drives the regular, everyday content producers, but also malicious actors, the bots and others, to produce content that is sensational, that is catchy, and that immediately gathers attention. Secondly, all social media are already, there is built-in system in them for you to share them easily with one click on your computer or just with your thumb on your phone. Because they thrive in this self-perpetuating expansion of any given information. Now, granted that at least in the United States, there are some federal mandates for social media giants to modulate at least or moderate at least hate speech and things that are extremely openly offensive to certain constituencies and people, and if there is a threat to violence. But there are so many ways in which people and bots can get through that. So that's where you, me, and everyone else comes in. It's our job to not become tools in the hands of those who want to spread fear, hate, or information that is patently false. Now, I have noticed in one of the WhatsApp group, which is pretty mature people, these are not your stereotypical young people. I mean, mostly retirees from my former profession, where as soon as I open my WhatsApp group, there are 200 messages. But the problem is most of those messages are not the things that these people wrote to each other, because that would be real conversation, that would be real staying in touch. These are just things that they saw somewhere and forwarded, most of the times without vetting or without even thinking what it's saying. If the headline is catchy and it somehow meets their own political preferences or prejudices, they share it. What that does is it forces someone else to comment on it. So while that may be ideal for the social media giants and others who want to perpetuate such conversations, in a group where people are there to stay in touch with each other, such sharing of information can sometimes be misleading, can be divisive, right? And can become a reason for conflict. So the very reason such groups were created or are created by people is so that they can stay in touch with long lost friends, right? People that they grew up with. But the very group that was created to create a community, virtual community, then ends up being destroyed because of unedited sharing of things people find on social media. Another thing that I've noticed amongst young people is that a lot of their stress and anxiety is caused by what someone says about them on social media or shares with them on social media. So not only are these media perpetuating larger political conspiracies and hatred, they are also causing extra stress and anxiety for people in their everyday life because someone shared something about them or implied that some video or something has a direct relationship to them. So that's another destructive aspect of social media and its unedited and careless usage, and the implications of which haven't even been deeply studied yet, but we are seeing that. I teach young people. We are seeing the impact of that on people's lives. I mean, there are instances in the United States and elsewhere where young people actually committed suicide because of what was said about them on social media. So previously, bullying, high school and college hazing and bullying used to be personal, right? People had to be face to face with you to bully you or to say bad things to you. Now, because of social media, it has become indirect, perpetual, and it can be non-stop. So there are deep, deep, dangerous consequences of careless and callous use of social media. So what can we do? I mean, as teachers, what can we do? As parents, what can you do? I mean, one way is that we control all communication, which is impossible to do. I think a better way is to make it part of our didactics, part of our teaching, where we don't just lecture our students and tell them not to use social media or it's bad. They are going to use social media. They grew up with it. But what we can teach them or guide them with is that when they are interacting on social media, the knowledge offered to them, the information offered to them is just like any information that is offered to them in a classroom. They have to gauge and measure whether it's true or not. They have to learn to assess what's the purpose of a snippet, a picture, a video. What is it trying to do? You know, our young students are pretty skeptical about other things. They immediately know if you're trying to sell them something, or if someone is trying to sell them something. They immediately know if we are trying to force them to work a little harder. We can tap into that curiosity and maybe that skepticism and help them be skeptical of any information that is freely offered through social media. So the recipe then isn't controls only or disciplining or banning social media. Because anytime you ban something, people find a way around it, right? And they become more curious about it. But I think the recipe is more responsible engagement with social media, more careful engagement with social media, and training in the houses, at home, but also in school, training in responsibility, training in letting people know that whatever they say or do on social media has its consequences, and that whatever they put out there on the internet, it never dies. We could also simply educate them about not sharing a lot of their private information, especially on social media, by encouraging them to know that anything that they share on social media cannot be kept private, cannot be a secret, and will become publicly known, and that they should be really responsible in what they share. Another thing that we could let them know is that more and more employers, especially in the United States, are checking your open social media posts. Sometimes they will ask you to share your Twitter handle, or even they can be too intrusive to share your Facebook link. So that means that whatever you say or whatever you post or whatever you respond to has now become part of a public record which can be used by your future employers. So overall, I think the best strategy to deal with our social media presence for us as well as for our students and everyone else is to share only the bare minimum information, to keep our interactions professional, and to responsibly vet and and find out whether or not what we are sharing is actually true, whether it's divisive or not, whether it's hateful or not, and then be extra cautious and careful in what we share. This is something that can be taught, that can be learned, but the only way we will learn it and our students will learn it is if we constantly remind them of that, if we constantly link their actions to the consequences for themselves, emotional and material, and consequences for others, right? Part of it has to be, look, you're sharing something about someone. How is it going to impact them? How would they feel? Would it be something terrifying for them? Would it be something hurtful? Would you do this in real life? Part of our training has to be for ourselves, for our students and our children, has to be to know that it doesn't matter if it is virtual or if it is social media. The words that they put in there, the pictures and videos that they respond to or that they consume have the same kind of impact on their psyche, and probably more heightened and more destructive impact on the people who are targeted. So I started with a discussion of the Facebook group that my old friends have formed. For 2 days or 3 days, the group admins decided that they were not going to let anyone post forwarded posts or forwarded videos. And trust me, I was watching this whole exchange. For those 2 or 3 days, our conversations and their quality improved. People started sharing pictures of, our young years from the military academy. They started reminding each other of what they did years ago. They actually wrote to each other. So the quality of engagement and quality of conversation and communication improved 1,000-fold. Sadly, since some people objected to not being able to share videos and pictures, that policy was rescinded. And so now the group is back to, here is my politician and he is the greatest, and others coming and saying, this is my political leader and he is the greatest. So the exchanges have become more acrimonious and the conversations have become less relatable and thin and shrill. So this is just anecdotal evidence from one group that I'm a part of. But the reason I'm bringing it up is because these are the people who have known each other for 50 years or 40 years. And they can still find reasons because of uncritical sharing of materials to say hateful things to each other. So imagine 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds who grew up in social media, whose idea of self-worth is connected to what someone says and how they are represented. Imagine how destructive an impact would it have on them if someone were to uncritically say something about them or share something about them. So that's why I thought I should create this video, just to start a conversation about what could be possibly a more responsible use of social media and how best to train ourselves and our children and our students to be responsible consumers of social media, to be responsible interactors with social media. I hope this was useful to you. These are just my thoughts. These are not scholarly opinions or final words on this topic, but I would love to hear your views about it. And let me know if you've had any similar experiences or different experiences. I would love to hear about them. I would love to read your comments about it. Please let me know what you think. As always, I'm grateful for your support. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please go ahead and do so that we can stay in touch. Please be kind and generous to each other. And as always, I will see you next time. Until then, peace and love.